Welcome back from Stasis. Today we have another Warhammer 40k Combat Patrol magazine video. This is batch 2, issues 3 through 6. First up, you do get a toolkit in this one. It includes a clipper and a mold line removal tool. The clipper is their standard starter clipper. It's an okay clipper. It gets the job done. And the mold line tool is actually pretty useful. Definitely better than using back of a knife. I have some other mold line tools myself that I prefer to use, although I can see myself using this one in certain cases. After that, we have issue number 3. This is the one that comes with the 5 Infernus Marines. These are, again, push-fit models. Get the bases out of the way. And these are the bases with the slots for the models. You get 5 Marines. Decent little push-fit kit. This one also came with punch-out data cards. So you have your Terminator Captain and Prime from issue 1, your Leapers from the second issue, the Inferno Squad from this one, the Barb Gaunts, which we'll have later in this batch. And I do know that the Termagants are going to come in issues 7 and 8. They'll be split between them. I'm not exactly sure when you get the Librarian or the Terminator Squad. We may get those in the next batch. It may be the batch after. It also included some of these little terrain components to go with the previous mat. One side has some stats, which I have upside down. One side has some stats. The other side is just blank for decoration. But those will go with the mat, and they are included in some of the missions in the issues. The next one, let me clear this one out. It's issue 4. This one did not include any models, but this was the one where you get paint and a starter brush. Now, I was a little bit surprised because this also shipped in just a plastic bag. I kind of thought maybe these paints might get squished, pop open in the bag. I guess they would replace it, but it's still inconvenient. I know that in a future issue, we're due to get a ceramic mug. I hope they include a box for that one. Issue 5, you get the alternate Infernus Marine Sergeant. This is our first non-push fit kit. So this one does introduce you to just building a non-push fit model. And it came with more dice, I assume because we are accumulating more units with more attacks. So if you are keeping up with the scenarios in these issues, they'll probably be handy. And finally, we have issue 6. And this has the Barb Gaunts. I'm assuming that is how you say them, or pronounce them. This, we are back to push-fit models. Overall, Tyranid models have lots of detail, so these should be very fun to put together and paint. And that is all of the models and everything for this batch. And we'll get into the individual issues. First up is issue number 3. This is our Infernus Marines. Now, this one did come with those data cards, which I pre-punched out, but they did come on a rather flimsy card. I hate to say card. It's a little bit like card, better than paper. But I would be careful trying to punch those out. The perforation is not the best, and I could see you tearing those cards a bit. Like previous issues, this one I have had some trouble with the area around the holes sticking. So again, we start with the how to build. Again, these are push fit models, so they just want you to clip them out and push them together. I still recommend on push fit models to trim the pegs slightly. And of course, I use glue to put it helps to hide those connection points and all of the lines that you would see. Some models are better at hiding their seams than others, though. And of course, you get more lore, which I have not read all of this lore yet. I don't know how much of it is repeat for myself. And I imagine this is expanding on the previous lore that we've been given. And you have the naming and checklist for the squad. I do find it interesting that they keep doing this. It gives you some goals to work towards, and I guess personalizes. When you have very few miniatures, I guess the personalization helps. If you were using a whole army, I'm not sure I'd want to personalize every squad, but some may. And of course, you have their data sheet. Although I think this is the issue where they actually start to teach you about data sheets, so maybe it's more useful. And then they go into giving your unit a more complex name. And then you have your scenario for this one, the Cleanse, Purge, Kill, which, even though they give you an entire squad of Infernus Marines, this scenario uses one. But it does use those new punch-outs that I mentioned earlier, specifically the ones that have stats. You'll be placing those out on the mat, and you'll be moving your Marine around to try to destroy each of the infestation sites. They do get to make an attack against you at the end of the round. I didn't see where range is an issue for that, so I guess if you're on one side of the map, the infestation site on the other side can still attack you. And you are simply trying to destroy the infestation sites before they kill your Infernus Marine. And of course, they have a play-by-play of how your rolls should go. This is, I believe, the first time that they have included that they have rules for ranged combat. However, it is a torrent weapon, and so everything just automatically hits. You do not have to roll to hit. You do roll to see how many hits you generate, though. So, and they're still not using armor piercing as far as I believe. And then, of course, you have your story bit of how the battle ends. The back page where they show you the ad again with all of the corners to cut out for tokens, which I would advise against. And of course, as we know, the next two issues have these items. On to issue number 4. I do find this to be the most lackluster because it is just paints. I already own both the blue and the Wraithbone. The burgundy is a new color. I do believe I have similar colors in my paint range, but I'll be happy to use it. Wraithbone is always welcome. It's commonly used paint for me. And I guess I'll have to start using more blue because I have one unopened pot now and another pot that I think I have opened, but is most likely mostly full. This also did include a starter brush. It's got a tip on it, probably better than your generic Walmart brush, although I have had some good luck with cheap brushes from places like Walmart. The problem tends to be you buy those in a set, and really only 2 or 3 of the brushes are the appropriate size. So it's nice that they're giving somebody an appropriate size brush to get started. This one, obviously, does not start with a how to build, but instead get straight into painting. And they do a decent job, reminding you need water cup, some sort of palette. I love that they've broken it down to even using a dinner plate if you need to. They do show different types of brushes, which I believe will receive most of those throughout the subscription. And then they get into techniques. My only complaint here, I really wish they would have the part about shaking your pot and opening it before they tell you to open it and take paint out. But they do at least tell you to thin your paint down with some water, and they give an example of too thick and too thin, which is good because most people don't know what too thick or too thin is. Then they go over base coating. They do also remind you to clean your brush often. I wish they would put that in here almost every page. It is one of the things I have learned that will save your brush and extend its life is to constantly clean it. Other than that, looks like they are wanting us to prime our Space Marines pure blue. I mean, we only have 3 colors at this point. And they want our Tyranids in pure Wraithbone. And then we have some more, a little bit of lore. Then they get into giving your Terminator Captain a title, just to improve his story, I guess. Then they also talk about the Chaplain on Bike and the Librarian in Terminator armor, both of which I know we will receive, but we have not yet at this point, so it's a little odd that they have references to them as far as giving them titles here. Then they also do the same for the Tyranids, but they do not go beyond, it looks like just the Winged Prime. I don't think they even have you do anything with your Leapers or anything. I don't know the full range, so I don't know if there's more hero units in the Tyranid force. And now they are getting into a bit about datasheets. I know I said they may have discussed datasheets in the last one, but I don't remember seeing the full breakdown. So maybe it's in this one. Maybe I got it confused. But regardless, we have another mission. This time, you will use 3 of the Infernus Marines versus 1 Leaper. You will not be doing ranged attacks here. This is just all melee. They just simply have you set it up in the middle and go back and forth. Which, as far as balance, let's see. The Marines are rolling 3 attacks apiece, so you have 9 attacks, hitting on 3s. They are strength 4 versus the Tyranids toughness 5, so they're going to be wounding on 5s. So hit on 3, wound on 5. Yes, the Leaper also has a save of 4 up. So we're still not using armor piercing here. Although I do not believe the Marines have any armor piercing. Does it tell me how many wounds the Leaper has? Looks like he has 3 wounds. I do not see how many the Space Marines have. So hitting on 3s, wounding on 5s, and then he saves on 4s. It's 9 attacks. Yeah, it's possible you could take him out in the first attack. Not likely, though. He attacks back with 6 attacks, hits on 3s. He has strength 5 versus their toughness 4, so he's wounding on 3s. But the Space Marines also have a 3-up save, and they have 2 wounds apiece. So they do have twice his wounds and a handful more attacks, but he hits a lot harder. I do like they talk about getting data slates or data sheets, and they even have a QR code off here to the side. Let me move that on screen for you. You can scan that and go get all the data sheets for everything that comes in these magazines. And let's see what else we have here. Yes, this is where we have the full breakdown of everything on a data sheet. It is a lot, especially if you're talking about each individual stat. And then they break down more of the attack sequence. And even in this, I believe they start showing here at the end. So this is not included in the mission, but they are introducing you to armor piercing, or AP. So, and then of course the very same back part. So I'm conflicted on this issue. It does have a lot of good info in it, but it just came with paint. And we all know everyone's here for the models. But on to issue number 5. This is our Infernus Sergeant. Now, he is just a substitute sergeant for the sergeant that's already in the squad. They actually tell you that in here. His build instructions are a bit more complicated because, here's another issue I have with some of these. I have had a couple of them where a page is not attached. I will say this issue in particular, though, I had zero trouble with the hole punches. No pages were stuck together, just one falling out. So, yes, this one, they give you an extra warning about glue. Although I'm not sure they specifically highlight how to glue. I think they covered some of that in issue 1. And then they have us starting to mix a couple colors on our models now. So they show doing his base with blue, but painting the Tyranid part with our Wraithbone. And then they do start to show we're going to paint some of the heads with Wraithbone. I think especially the heads with no helmet. And then, of course, we're starting to add that burgundy to our Tyranids. And even here, they add the burgundy to the base of this Infernus Marine. And they give you more tips of how to work from the inside out and how to clean up some mistakes. And there we go. You should have some slightly painted models at this point if you were following along. I'm personally waiting until I have the entire combat patrol. I want to have a cohesive paint scheme for mine. Just reading the giant title here, it looks like they're talking about the Imperial Tithes, which is a fun subject for people who don't know about them. And then they also talk about black ships. Yet another fun subject for people who don't know anything about it. I do love that they call out the red helmets for the Ultramarines here. Just to point out different chapters' ways of recognizing command units. I believe each chapter has different ways of doing so, but at least they call out for the pattern that they're having you try to paint. We then have our full naming and lore build for the sergeant. And it looks like we have Flames of Purification for our scenario. Again, we're using the box side of the map. I believe anytime we are using this, you just move one square in a direction. This time it is the Infernus Sergeant, again trying to destroy the infestation sites. I do not know that they attack back this time. Let me double check. They very well may. Yes, they do. Okay. They gave him an extra this time. Lore-wise, he has extra fuel canisters that have varying amounts of AP. So by default, his weapon has AP 0, and you have one canister for AP 1, another canister for AP 2, and another third canister for AP 3. So this is really the scenario teaching you about AP. And then they give the examples of how it affects your armor saves And then, of course, we have our lore bit based on who wins. And then they begin talking about modifiers and re-rolling dice. And they specifically point out how to roll and count a D3. I have had many people who are not used to games in general. I have absolutely no idea what a D3 is. They think they're looking for a specific die. And I do know that there are a couple places that specifically make a D3, but it is nice to educate those who may not know. And then we're showing dice modifiers and begin showing some abilities that may modify your characteristics. This one has a different back page. I do like that it shows full army scale. So, and we don't have the cutout tokens this time. This does start to give us that preview of 7 and 8. Specifically points out part 1 and part 2. That will be 10 termagants and a Ripper Swarm. So I guess one issue will come with 5 and the Ripper Swarm, and the other issue will just come with 5. But that's okay. Those are both our issues, our first and second issue of batch 3. And now on to the final issue number 6. I really don't know if I'm pronouncing this correct. I'm just saying Barbgants. I could see some people saying Barbagants, but I think that requires another A in there. I'm not sure. They're aliens. You can probably just call them the nasty bugs. Again, I believe I have a page that has separated this time, and I think this one also had next to no issues with the hole punch area being stuck together. So I don't know why some issues seem to have that problem and others don't. I personally have used a hobby knife to try to separate the pages with as little damage as possible. Some of the pages tore on their own, so I'm not extremely happy about that. I do know that we'll eventually put these in a binder, but I don't imagine that the torn pages will help hold that very well. But again, back with the Barbgants, we're back to push fit models. I believe it's 5 of them that you get. And then they jump straight into how to paint them because they've been having you paint for a couple issues now. So I do like that they are showing how to get it base coated and then start on your other colors. Work up. And they do very much point out that these are a work in progress and we will touch them up later. Nope. And I have more pages separating. It could just be an issue of me laying these flat on a table. However, I imagine anybody wanting to actually use these would try to lay them out flat. So we do then get into lore, which I find it a little funny that we get Tyranid units in this issue and then immediately jump into the Emperor and the Golden Throne. But then we also go into High Fleets and the Tyrannic Wars. So maybe they're just trying to highlight the ongoing wars between the Imperium and the Tyranids. I personally have not read much about that. Again, I am actually just kind of jumping into full 40k. I play Kill Team myself and some Necromunda. I used to play 40k all the way back in 3rd edition. I know a lot of the lore has changed since then. In fact, the particular point of 3rd edition I played, Tyranids did not have a codex yet. Neither did Necrons. I don't remember if Tau came out in that edition. I remember after I quit, new things had come out, and I do remember seeing somebody with Tau. I can't remember if that's after it switched to 4th edition. So yes, not very familiar with some of this stuff. And here again, we have naming and our checklist. There we go. And our data sheet, which hopefully after last issue, we now understand these better. I do find it funny that the previous issue introduces to the concept of the armor penetration, and then this one gives us a unit that has 0 AP. So we won't be using that at all in this live fire operation. And I believe this is where we start getting into some good shooting. So their setup is that you will have your 5 barb guns here, and you'll take your 5 Infernus Marines, place them up there. Each round, you're going to take a shooting action against the Infernus Marines, and then the Infernus Marines are going to advance 1 square. So after each round, they'll keep advancing. Once they get to this square, they will then advance off the board. You are trying to make sure that fewer than 3 exit the board. So you need to kill 3 or more of the Infernus Marines, which honestly does not seem like that hard a task. I believe you have 4 rounds to accomplish it. Your Barbagants have D6 attacks, so this is the first time they have you... Well, not the first time they have you rolling for how many attacks. However, the previous time they had you rolling for how many, they were automatic hits. So this time, they're not automatic hits. So we have 5 Barbagants, D6 each, so 5d6 attacks. They hit on 4s. It's strength 5 weapon, so it's going to be 1d on 3s. And again, we don't have any kind of armor penetration, so the Marines will save on 3s. They have 2 health each. And of course, we have examples of batch rolling, because at this point, when you're taking something like 18 shots, they've only provided 12 dice, so I'm not sure you need to explain how to roll in batches to people, but just in case they do. And of course, your story bits. And they start getting into more of the weapon profiles here. So that's good, because the Infernus Marines also have bolt pistols. So I imagine we'll be using those in the future. And they also start talking about how to split fire between different units. And again, we have the army page on the back instead of our tokens. And then here is that preview of the Termagants and Ripper Swarm. So that will conclude everything for this batch. We will see you in a month when batch 3 comes out. Until then, enjoy stasis.